Welcome to CrimePod Castle, Unsolved Mystery Series, Episode 10. Today we're going to be diving into a case that, well, it really shook India, and it still keeps people guessing. The death of Sunanda Pushkar. She was prominent. She was a socialite, successful businesswoman, married to a well-known politician, Shashi Tharoor. But her life, it was far from a fairy tale.
Yeah, it really was. And I think what makes this case so fascinating is the whirlwind of events that led up to Sunanda's death. And then, of course, the just tangled web of evidence that followed. Just days before her passing, her Twitter feed just exploded with these accusations directed at her husband, hinting at an affair with a Pakistani journalist, Mehr Tarar. So you have this very public display of marital strife, all splashed across news channels and social media, really painting a picture of a woman who is deeply troubled.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a scene ripped from a gossip column, right?
Yeah.
Not something you'd expect in the life of a seemingly powerful couple. But this very public drama, it set the stage for what became a really baffling mystery. Just 2 days after this Twitter storm, Sunanda was found dead in a luxury Delhi hotel room.
Right, and that's where the intrigue really begins. Initial reports, they kind of lean toward a natural death, maybe an overdose, or, some kind of sudden health issue. But think about the timing, right? Right on the heels of this very public, very messy marital spat, it instantly raised eyebrows, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost too dramatic to be a coincidence. So what did investigators uncover?
Well, the autopsy report, instead of providing clarity, it kind of just muddied the waters further. There were mentions of bruises on her body, though they were, downplayed as not serious. And the possibility of a drug overdose lingered. But was it accidental, intentional? The report couldn't say for sure. And, in a case that was already generating so much public interest, this lack of clarity was like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Okay, so let's unpack this. So we have a high-profile death under mysterious circumstances, backdrop of very public marital discord, and now an autopsy report that raises more questions than it answers. Talk about a recipe for a media frenzy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The media went into overdrive, churning out theories, ranging from suicide to accidental overdose to something far more sinister. And as the investigation progressed, things got even more complicated. Forensic analysis, it hinted at poisoning, but even then, there was debate about how it might have been administered. Was it through an ingestion? No one could definitively say.
What's fascinating here is how quickly the narrative shifted from what could have been a personal tragedy to a full-blown whodunit. And, of course, you can't ignore the elephant in the room, right? Shashi Tharoor and his husband. With all these accusations and suspicions swirling around, he must have been under immense pressure.
Absolutely. Shashi Tharoor, already a prominent figure in Indian politics, he found himself at the epicenter of this storm. The police questioned him repeatedly, and the media scrutiny was just relentless. He maintained his innocence throughout the ordeal and expressed immense grief over Sunanda's death. But, that shadow of suspicion never really lifted.
Right, and then there's the added layer of the alleged affair with the journalist, Mehr Tarar. It's like something out of a soap opera. This web of relationships, jealousy, and betrayal playing out on a very public stage.
It certainly added fuel to the fire. The relationship between Tharoor, Sunanda, and Mehr Tarar, it became a key focus of speculation. Did the alleged affair push Sunanda to a breaking point? Was there more to this love triangle than met the eye? These questions lingered as the investigation pressed on.
So we have a high-profile death, a web of complex relationships, and an investigation that's yielding more questions than answers. Where did the investigation go from there?
Well, buckle up, because about a year later, the case took a dramatic turn. The Delhi police dropped a bombshell. They announced they were now treating Sunanda's death as murder, citing poisoning by injection as the cause.
Wow. A year of speculation and uncertainty, and then suddenly it's a murder investigation.
Yeah.
That must have sent shockwaves through the media and the public.
It absolutely did. Public interest in the case just exploded. The police, they launched into this new phase of investigation. Deploying every tool at their disposal, they conducted polygraph tests, which, by the way, measure physiological responses like heart rate and sweat to try and detect lies. They re-examined evidence, and they ramped up their questioning of those close to Sunanda.
But even with this renewed effort and advanced techniques like polygraph tests, did they manage to crack the case?
That's where things get even more frustrating. Despite all the resources and manpower dedicated to solving this case, it essentially hit a wall. Years of investigation, mountains of evidence, and yet the mystery endures.
It's almost unbelievable that even with these advanced forensic tools like polygraph tests, they still couldn't solve this case. What happened? Did they just hit a dead end? Or was there just not enough evidence?
Well, in a way, both. In 2016, a medical panel from AIMS, that's the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, one of India's, top medical institutions, they reviewed the case. And they kind of threw another wench into the works. They ruled out natural causes, confirming that something unnatural was definitely at play. However, they couldn't definitively say how Sunanda had been poisoned. So the exact method remained a mystery.
So even with all these experts weighing in, the central question was still unanswered. How did Sunanda Pushkar die? It's almost like this case was designed to be unsolvable.
You're not wrong. This case really underscores the limitations of even, the most thorough investigations. Sometimes, despite our best efforts and even with technological advancements, there just simply isn't a clear-cut answer. The passage of time, the lack of conclusive evidence, and even, conflicting expert opinions, it can all contribute to a case remaining open.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? We live in an age where we expect technology and science to provide all the answers. But this case is a stark reminder that some mysteries may never be fully unraveled. And it's not just about the evidence, right? We can't forget the human element, the emotional toll this took on everyone involved. Think about Shashi Tharoor, constantly in the spotlight, living under this cloud of suspicion, even though he was never charged with any crime.
Yeah, the human cost of this case is undeniable. That relentless media scrutiny, the public speculation, the constant dissection of their personal lives, it all undoubtedly took a heavy toll on everyone involved, especially Shashi Tharoor. I mean, he lost his wife under tragic circumstances and then had to endure years of being portrayed as a potential suspect in the public eye. It's a heartbreaking situation.
It really makes you think about the pressures faced by public figures. Politicians especially, they live their lives under a microscope. Every move scrutinized, every word analyzed. It's just a different level of pressure than most people ever experience.
You're absolutely right. And this case brings those pressures into sharp focus. That intense media scrutiny, the constant speculation about motives and relationships, it all played out on this very public stage, fueled in no small part by Sunanda's own use of social media.
That's an interesting point. Social media has become this kind of double-edged sword, hasn't it? On the one hand, it gives people a voice, this platform to share their thoughts and their feelings. But on the other hand, it can amplify personal conflicts and turn private matters into these public spectacles.
Exactly. In Sunanda's case, her tweets provided this raw, unfiltered glimpse into her emotional state and the turmoil within her marriage. And, these very personal revelations shared so publicly, it undoubtedly fueled the media's fascination with the case and really shaped public perception. I mean, it's almost like we as a society are both drawn to and repelled by these glimpses into the private lives of public figures.
It's a complex dynamic. We're fascinated by the lives of those in the spotlight, yet we also hold them to a different standard, often forgetting that they're human beings, with their own vulnerabilities and complexities. And in a case like this, where truth and fiction become blurred, the lines between public persona and private pain become even more difficult to discern.
Yeah, it's a reminder that behind every headline, behind every scandal, every unsolved mystery, there are real people grappling with real emotions, real loss, real consequences.
So here we are, years later, with a case that still captivates and confounds. Sunanda Pushkar's death remains a mystery, a puzzle with missing pieces, leaving us to ponder the what-ifs and the unanswered questions. But what of the impact of this case? Beyond the headlines and the speculation, what does it tell us about the world we live in?
I think this case serves as a stark reminder of several things. It highlights the limitations of our investigative processes, even in an age of advanced technology. It underscores the immense pressures faced by public figures, particularly in the unforgiving glare of the media spotlight. And it reveals the complex and often unpredictable nature of human relationships, especially when played out on the very public stage of social media.
Yeah, it really is a sobering thought, isn't it? That sometimes, even with all our best efforts, some mysteries just, they remain unsolved. But before we wrap up, it's important to reiterate that despite, years of investigation, intense scrutiny, no one has ever been formally charged in connection with Sunanda Pushkar's death.
That's right. The investigation, while, technically still open, has effectively reached a standstill. And it leaves behind this vacuum filled with speculation and conjecture, but no definitive answers.
So as we close out this deep dive into the perplexing death of Sunanda Pushkar, I'm curious, what stands out to you as the most intriguing or perplexing element of this entire case? What makes it so captivating, even after all these years?
Well, for me, it's the sheer volume of unanswered questions that still just hang over this case. You know, those lingering bruises on Sunanda's body, the exact nature of the substances found in her system. Were they injected? And ultimately, was her death the result of foul play or a tragic accident fueled by despair? You know, these questions, combined with the high-profile nature of those involved and the scandalous whispers of an affair, it's all kept this case firmly embedded in the public imagination.
It's a case that resists easy categorization, right? It's a tale of personal tragedy woven into this very public spectacle, shrouded in a mystery that may never fully unravel.
Precisely. And that's what makes it so compelling. You know, it forces us to confront the intricate nature of human relationships, the unpredictable twists and turns of life, and the limits of our own ability to truly understand the world around us.
Well, this deep dive has definitely left us with more to contemplate than to resolve. And perhaps that's the most fitting conclusion to a case that continues to baffle and intrigue.
Perhaps it is. You know, the unresolved mystery of Sunanda Pushkar's death, it reminds us that even in our age of advanced forensics and, you know, these meticulous investigations, some truths remain just out of reach. Some questions, they may never find definitive answers.
As we close this chapter of the deep dive, we'll leave you with one final thought to ponder. What does this case reveal about the human condition? Our insatiable drive to make sense of the world, and perhaps our even greater need to find meaning when we are confronted with uncertainty. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of the mystery. That continues to captivate and intrigue, and please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe or follow CrimePod Castle.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop seeking the truth, even when it seems just beyond our grasp.